press anything on this? No. So it's really nice to be able to share some things with you this morning. Lou's going to be sharing a little bit as well. As we head into the summer, things change a little bit over the summer. People travel, and Sundays sometimes look a little bit different. And then obviously in September, as we've shared with you, there will be changes in the leadership, and we want to just be able to share a bit about those things in the run-up to that. So we want to talk a little bit about some of the things that we value in leadership and how that's shaped some of the thinking around the leadership structure. Lou will talk a little bit more about that. And we'll try and get into the habit of saying Thornton Community Church. We will let you know when, when that is official. But, that's the shape of that as we move forward. A few weeks ago, it was probably longer than that, I'd read an Instagram post. Oh, I don't know what's going on suddenly. Singing too loud this morning. Thank you, Steve. That was a special time of worship. So I have to jump. That's okay. I can't be fussy. Well, I don't know which side. I think it was the opposite side. Okay. So, a few months ago, I follow a guy on social media, and he's a pastor of a church, and he talks about variety of Christian things, and he always picks really interesting passages or themes to talk about that really engage me, because it's usually something that I've never thought about, or he pulls something out of a passage that I might have never noticed or seen. And he posted something, it was about leadership, and it had this passage, and I was intrigued by it, and I thought, right, I'm going to go back and read that passage again. And so that sort of fueled a little bit of the thinking and our chats together with Louise over that. And it's from Matthew 23. And this this situation that happens and the things that Jesus has shared, it takes place in the final week of Jesus' ministry. It's in Jerusalem just before he is put to death on the cross. So in the previous chapters of Matthew, but also in Luke, as we've been looking through all his parables and the stories that he told, Jesus has been challenged by religious leaders. He's been asked questions, and they've been trying to almost trick him sometimes. And what would you do about that? And what do you do on that day? And, so we've seen in the weeks and the time in the lead up to Jesus' death, he's used those stories that we've been looking at to help people to understand his message. And some of those Pharisees and the Sadducees, the religious leaders, wanted to question him, maybe try and attempt to trap him with difficult questions. So in this passage, Jesus, it turns from talking to those Pharisees or those asking him questions, and he's talking here to his disciples and those around. And he's acknowledging that there are teachers of the law, and that there are Pharisees that hold position and authority. But here in this passage, we see him warning his disciples about their leadership. So I'm just going to read a part of that passage. So this is Matthew 23, verses 1 to 10. It says, Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, the teachers of the law and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat, so you must be careful to do what they tell you. But do not do what they do, for they do not practice what they preach. They tie up heavy, cumbersome loads and put them on other people's shoulders, but they themselves are not willing to lift a finger to move them. Everything they do is done for people to see. They make their phylacteries, I'm not sure how you say that, but what that is a small leather box that would have contained parts of the scriptures, and devout Jewish men would have had this little box, and they would have put it either on their head or attached it to their arm, and they used it during prayer. So it was a display and used as a way of showing how important the scriptures were to them. And then it says he had and tassels on their long garments. They love the place of honor at banquets and the most important seats in the synagogues. They love to be greeted with respect in the marketplace and to be called rabbi by others. But you are not to be called rabbi, for you have one teacher, and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth Father, for you have one Father, and he is in heaven. Nor are you to be called instructors, for you have one instructor, the Messiah. It's an interesting and quite challenging passage. It's very clear and direct. And as Lou will just talk through some of the leadership structure, it is important for us to begin where Jesus begins, with a right understanding of leadership. And this is an interesting passage to think about. So in Matthew 23, we see Jesus speaking into a culture where religious leaders often sought recognition, influence, and honor. Titles are valued, positions, and public recognition. It seems that leadership is about status rather than service. Jesus speaks about teachers of the law and the Pharisees, so he acknowledges that they occupy positions of responsibility and authority. But here he is showing the dangers that can come with leadership. He says that they love places of honor at banquets. They like the most important seat. They want to be greeted with respect. In other words, it sounds like they have become more concerned with recognition and status and influence than serving God's people. Jesus challenges that mindset completely. He reminds his followers that they have one teacher, one Father, and one Lord. In other words, no human leader occupies the center. Christ does. Every leader in church serves under his authority and alongside fellow disciples. This means that leadership is not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's not about having the biggest platform or having the most influence. Not about being the most charismatic or popular, or having the highest status. Not even about being admired, being seen, or being in control. It's clear that in God's kingdom, leadership is not measured by these things. It's interesting in the world that we live in today how much of leadership is about these things. And there is a crisis of leadership everywhere we look at different levels. And here Jesus is warning about pursuit of those things. In reality, some of the most important leadership in this church happens quietly and unseen. One of the strengths of the structure that we've presented previously and Lou's going to remind us of in a minute, one of the strengths of that is that leadership is shared. It is not revolved around one personality or gift or space. The New Testament consistently shows us, and we've looked over this year about unity and working together. It presents the church as a body where everyone plays their part. People contribute according to gifts and skills. This sense of sharing leadership can encourage humility, which is what Jesus is showing us that is needed, accountability to one another and to God, wisdom and mutual support and unity. It reminds us that not one person sees everything, carries everything, or has all the answers for everything. And so we're blessed to have so many people in the church involved in leading different things. At the same time, it's important to acknowledge that shared leadership, in which the way our church functions, does not mean leaderless leadership. Throughout Scripture, we see teams of leaders, but we also see individuals who are entrusted with particular responsibilities to guide, to coordinate, to provide direction. And so for that reason, our core team, which is a shared leadership, does have a core team leader. And from September, that's going to be Louise. And she'll be leading the team with Barbara, Andy, Sarah, and Alison. Louise's role is not about greater status or authority or importance, but it is about serving the team, helping it to function effectively. The core team leader will facilitate the discussion, encourage participation. In many ways, their role, or Lou's role, is to enable the gifts and wisdom of others to flourish. Maybe the picture of an orchestra helps, where we have a conductor and everyone's playing together and it makes a beautiful sound. Louise is there to help provide clarity, coordination, momentum, so the leadership of the church can serve God well and serve its mission well. We can see this pattern with Jesus himself. He was unquestionably the leader of his disciples, and yet he led them through service, through humility, sacrifice, and love. Some of the things that we can reflect on from this passage of what Jesus teaches us or speaks to his disciples about leadership is that it is best when it provides direction without domination, influence without controlling people, an authority that is exercised for the good of others, not themselves. And so the role of the core team leader helps this team to lead effectively under Christ as the true teacher and Lord. And this is part of the message of Matthew 23, is that true spiritual leadership isn't about status, structures, titles, recognition, but we can see that here Jesus is saying it's about humility and serving others. And I believe that Lou will serve you and her team really well as we reflected on the warnings of this passage. I feel that as we move forwards, we are in a very healthy place with the leadership. And so I'm going to just hand over to Lou to just give a few more reflections and a bit more. We're so in tune, we're just sharing the cup.
Sharing the cup. There's not wine in this cup, it is water. So some of the things that Becky has shared from this passage in Matthew, as she said, has helped to shape the way that we think about leadership and what that looks like in soon-to-be Thornton Community Church. And as Becky has said, Jesus reminds us in this passage that leadership is not about having the biggest platform, the highest status, the strongest personality. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. But instead, in God's kingdom, leadership is measured by faithfulness to Jesus and by a willingness to serve others. And much of what that looks like happens in everyday moments. Praying for people, having pastoral conversations, making difficult decisions, serving practically, safeguarding, caring for others, stewarding resources well, and walking alongside people in this church through the joys and the challenges of life. Leadership is often expressed through quiet acts of faithfulness that help our church family to flourish. And much of it is not highly visible. It's not here at the front on a Sunday morning. It's happening quietly throughout the week. It happens behind the scenes, and sometimes it is unnoticed by people, but it is seen and deeply cared and valued by God. And it's through these acts of service that we believe people are cared for and supported and encouraged in their walk with Jesus. You just move the slide along for me, Andy. Thank you. So we shared this diagram in our last church meeting, and it is a visual representation of the leadership structure here I'm going to say Thornton Community Church, okay? I know we're using it intermittently. We're in a season of transition, but that is where God is taking us. And despite all the practical things that have to happen, that is the heart of who we are and what we want to be. In the middle of this diagram, you can see there is our core leadership team. So in this space, we will carry responsibility for providing spiritual leadership, for discerning vision and helping guide the direction of the church. And our role is to prayerfully listen to God, to serve the church family, and to help us move forward together in the purposes that he has for us. But we are not alone in this. We have, in the outer circle, you can see our wider leadership team. So these are people who lead ministries, who develop others and help carry responsibility for the life of the church. We're very blessed to have a lot of people in that space. And through their service and their gifts and their investment in people, they help to create spaces where others can grow and belong and contribute. We are also supported by our trustees who provide governance and oversight. They help us to ensure good stewardship, accountability, safeguarding and legal responsibility. And their work helps create a healthy and secure foundation for the ministry and the mission of the church. No easy business being a church, guys, is it? But we want to do this well, and we really believe that this structure helps us to do this. And while within those spaces the roles are different, none is more important than the other. Each represents a different expression of service, contributing to the same mission and working towards the same goal of helping people to encounter Jesus and to grow as his disciples. And Becky has said already, one of the strengths of that leadership is that it is shared. It's not revolving around one person or a single personality or gift or platform. But we want to reflect the New Testament picture of the church as a body where every person has a part to play and every gift matters. And as we serve together and we listen to one another and depend on God, we become stronger and healthier and better equipped to fulfill the mission that he has given us as Thornton Community Church. Matthew 23 reminds us that before we are leaders, we are brothers and sisters, we are friends, we are fellow followers of Jesus, and we are part of the same family, learning to walk with Christ together and belonging to one another in love. Every leader remains a disciple. We are still people who are learning, who are growing, who are listening and being shaped by Jesus. No one ever graduates from following him. We are all dependent on his grace and committed to helping one another become more like him. And because of this, our leadership structure is rooted in relationship and trust and accountability and a shared discernment. With our core leadership, our wider leadership, our trustees, and synergy, each bringing different gifts and responsibilities working together to serve the church. Not operating as separate authorities, but partnering together, listening to God and to one another as we seek the best for our church family. And as a church, we want to nurture leaders who are marked by humility, who serve rather than seek status, who welcome accountability, and who remain faithful in both the visible and the invisible places. We believe that leadership is healthiest when it grows out of genuine relationship and a shared commitment to Christ and his people. And it is our desire that this structure will help us to care well for one another and to steward wisely all that God has entrusted to us and continue to build a church community where Jesus is honoured at the centre. And over the last year, we have asked people to pray about the strengthening of the leadership, and God has been speaking to people. We announced in our last church meeting that Andy Hosford, Sarah Hosford, and Alison Werner have each sensed God's call to step into the core leadership team for the next season ahead. Last year, we also asked you to complete questionnaires. It feels like a very long time ago, doesn't it, that we started the Synergy process, the input process with Synergy, and we filled out questionnaires. And one of those questions was, who in church do you see leadership qualities in? And all three of those were named in that process. Many of you will know that Alison has been in the church for almost 12 years. It's a long time, isn't it? And she moved to Liverpool after living and serving in India for 5 years, working in mission in a language school. I don't know, do you know that she has lived in 3 continents and in 5 different countries? And she learnt to ride a moped at the age of 50 in India. I think that's amazing. So she is currently working as an English teacher in Bridge 2, and she has a real heart for prayer and a prophetic gifting, and she has a wealth of experience working cross-culturally. And Sarah and Andy have been part of the church for almost 5 years after deciding to leave London and relocate to Liverpool, and they have both served in leadership and trustee roles in their church in London. Sarah was born in Liverpool and moved to London when she was 18 to work as an intern for a church, and she continued for another 4 years working with children and youth work team. And then she moved into working with looked after children and young people, and she continues to do that today. Andy grew up in London and works in IT, and he was a team manager for a local Christian football team and was part of a team who led 2 football mission trips to Senegal through their church in London. We had some great conversations about mission trips around our small group table and the different places that we had been, encouraging our kids that, there's some really interesting things you can do with football. But he was also part of a team who ran children's summer camps in Romania, and he developed ongoing partnerships with local people and supported social action projects. Guys, I don't know why I'm crying, because I am so excited to be working with you. As I asked you for a little bit of information about yourselves, we just really believe that God has brought you here for this time with the skills and the giftings that you've got, and what an amazing set of gifting you're bringing across here, near and far, which is such a part of who we are. And your different experiences and your giftings are going to help to shape the leadership team and to shape church as we listen and as we hear from God. And we have set out this morning some really important things about leadership. Jesus really outlines what it is and what it isn't in this passage. And we are going to work together, and we are not always going to get it right, but we are going to stay in relationship, and we are going to stay humble, and we are going to apologize for our mistakes, and we are going to do our best to serve you as the church, taking the things from this passage. We are in a time of transition, so we are still currently functioning with the I hate the words old and new, but I'm going to use that. So the old, or the current, that's better, isn't it? Current leadership team, and we're also working towards transitioning to the new team. So within that, we have been working together. We've been meeting as a wider group. Sometimes we've just been meeting as a current team, sometimes meeting as a new team, just trying to work our way through different things to be ready for September. There's lots of conversation going on. But it is our deep desire to transition well in this period, learning to let go of the old and to take hold of the new. So please do be praying for us, church, as we navigate this together. And you can put the next slide up, Andy. So as we look ahead to the new season, we are going to have a celebration service, as we have already said, on the 27th of September. And we are going to thank God for the last 10 years of leadership in the King's Church. And we will be praying for the new leadership team who will be taking on Thornton Community Church and moving forward with that. So that's a really important date for your diary. And we are going to gather, and we're going to celebrate, and we're going to pray, and we're going to commission. But as we look ahead to this new season, we want to be a church where leadership reflects the heart of Jesus. Leadership that is humble, shared, accountable, and rooted in service. Let's pray. Father, I just thank you for your faithfulness to us as a church. Lord, I thank you for every person who serves, leads, gives, prays, and contributes to the life of this community. Lord, as we look ahead to this new season, we want to be a church where leadership reflects the heart of Jesus. Leadership that is humble and shared, accountable, and rooted in service to you. Jesus, would you lead us as we seek to lead your church? As we move into this new season, Jesus, would you unite us as one family? Help us to listen to your voice and give us confidence to follow where you lead. Lord, I've said it before and I will say it again. This is your church and we are your people. God, may everything that we do bring glory to Jesus and build your kingdom here on earth. Amen. Lots has been shared this morning. We will follow up with an email and the link, so if you want to listen again, and please do come and ask us questions, come and chat to us, come and talk to us. We want to hear always from you guys. We're going to go, I'll hand it back over to Alison.